Find a comfortable position. Let your body settle into its own weight. Allow the day to loosen, little by little, without needing to be fully set down all at once. There is nowhere to reach tonight and nothing to hold together. Only the quiet of dim light, cool stone, and hidden rooms waiting further in. You do not need to follow quickly. This is a story of thresholds, soft footsteps, and spaces prepared for rest long before you arrived. When you are ready, we begin. Tonight's story is called Resting in the Dream Temple of Isis. The temple waits at the edge of the night, pale against the dark, its outer walls holding the last traces of the day's warmth. The court before it lies open and still, paved in broad stone slabs that have begun to cool under the evening air. When you step across them, the surface carries two temperatures at once: a faint warmth held deeper down, and a cooler hush gathered over the top. A few lamps burn at measured distances along the walls, each one resting in a shallow bowl or sheltered niche, their flames low and steady. They do not brighten the court, so much as mark it gently, leaving wide stretches of quiet stone between one pool of amber light and the next. Beyond them, the columns of the outer temple rise into shadow, their carved sides catching only the smallest glints where the lamp glow reaches. The air is calm here, warm but no longer heavy, the kind of warmth that settles lightly on the skin without asking anything of you. Somewhere near one wall, a water jar stands beside a stone basin, and though you do not stop there, the faint coolness around it seems to rest in the air nearby. Nothing moves quickly. Nothing needs to. You cross the court at an unhurried pace, your steps softened by the openness of the night and the steady presence of the temple ahead. The broad doorway waits in shadow, dark at its center, with only a faint suggestion of low light somewhere beyond. From here, the entrance does not feel imposing. It feels sheltered, as though the rooms within have already settled into their own silence, and all that remains is to pass from the open night into the quieter spaces waiting inside. When you reach the last of the paving stones before the threshold, the court behind you has already begun to feel more distant, its open air giving way to the promise of enclosed stillness ahead. The lamps remain low, the stone remains cool beneath your feet, and the temple stands ready in patient silence before you. The doorway stands open, deep in shadow, its stone frame cooler than the air outside. As you step closer, the last of the open court begins to fall away behind you. The threshold stone has been worn smooth over time. Many feet have crossed here slowly, quietly, without hurry. Yours joins them now. The moment you step inside, the air changes. It feels cooler first, then stiller. The warmth of the night remains behind you, while the temple holds a gentler quiet of its own. The sounds of the court soften at once. The open sky is no longer above you. Stone rises around you instead, calm and close, holding the darkness differently. A low lamp burns in a wall niche just inside the entrance. Its light rests against the floor and the lower part of the wall, leaving the upper space dim. Further in, another lamp answers it. Then another, not brightly, only enough to show that the temple continues inward in measured stages. You pause for a moment on the inner side of the doorway. The stone beneath your feet feels smoother here, cooler too, the kind of coolness that has been kept from the day, sheltered behind thick walls. Above and around the entrance, faint traces of painted detail linger on plaster and carved stone. Not enough to pull your attention for long, only soft shapes half held in the low light. The temple does not reveal itself all at once. It lets each part appear slowly. Ahead, the first hall waits in dim amber light. Behind you, the outer court has already begun to feel more distant, as though the quiet inside has gently closed around you. You stand for one breath longer in the hush of the threshold, then move further in. The hall opens out before you, longer than the entrance space, but quieter somehow for being enclosed. Lamps rest in wall niches at measured intervals. Each flame burns low and steady. Their light gathers close to the stone, leaving the spaces between in soft shadow. The floor beneath your feet has been smoothed by long use. It does not shine. It simply holds the light where it falls, then lets it fade again. As you move further in, the temple begins to show its shape by degrees. A side opening appears along one wall, half screened by hanging linen. Further ahead, another passage turns away into darkness before the next lamp reveals its edge. Nothing is hidden sharply here. Each room seems to withdraw a little behind the next, as though the temple prefers to be entered slowly. The walls carry traces of painted plaster, softened by time and low light. A line of color follows the stone at shoulder height. Higher up, shapes rise and disappear again in shadow before they can fully form. You notice them only in passing. The hall does not ask to be studied, only walked through. The air rests differently here than at the entrance. It rests against your skin with the even stillness of a place that has been closed from the outer night for many hours. The scent of lamp oil lingers faintly in the air, warm and clean. Your steps remain soft. The sound they make is smaller now, folded into the length of the hall and returned without sharpness. Ahead, the lamps continue one by one. Between them, the dim spaces deepen, and with each slow step, the temple feels less like one room and more like many dim rooms waiting further in. A quieter space opens just off the hall, not a full room, more a recessed alcove set back from the main passage. A low bench stands against the wall. Beside it rests a folded linen cloth, pale in the lamp light. Here, the movement of the temple slows even further. You pause. The sandals are loosened and set neatly aside. The small action feels natural in this quieter part of the temple, as though the deeper rooms ask for lighter steps. When your bare feet meet the stone, the coolness is immediate, not harsh, only clean and steady. The warmth of the outer court has fully gone now. This deeper cool has been kept by the walls and floor through the long evening. You stand still for a moment and feel it. Stone beneath your feet, soft linen nearby, low lamp light resting against the wall. The hall behind you has grown more distant already. Ahead, the temple remains quiet, layered, and dim. Nothing urges you onward. The pause itself feels part of the way in. One hand brushes lightly against the folded cloth. Its texture is dry and smooth, simple, prepared, the kind of object placed there before nightfall, waiting without announcement to be used when needed. When you step forward again, your footfalls make almost no sound. The floor receives them softly. And moving on without sandals, you feel the temple differently now, closer, quieter, more immediate beneath each step. As you leave the recess behind, another sound begins to gather through the quiet. At first, it is so faint it seems part of the calm itself. Then it becomes clearer. Water, not near, somewhere deeper inside the temple. A small sound only, a light trickle, a soft settling in stone. It reaches you gently through the hall and the turning passages beyond, never loud enough to disturb the silence around it. Instead, it seems to draw the silence together. You slow without meaning to. The lamps remain spaced along the wall behind, and ahead, their glow falling in calm intervals. Between them, the dimness feels softer now, as though the temple is leading not only inward, but further into greater quiet. A length of linen hangs across one opening further on. Beyond another, the passage narrows and slips out of sight. The sound of water seems to come from somewhere among those hidden rooms, carried lightly through curtain, corridor, and stone. You do not need to know exactly where. It is enough to hear it. Enough to know that deeper inside, a basin or pool waits in the lamplight, still and undisturbed except for that one gentle movement. The air feels cooler here, not from any draft, only from the sense of water gathered within the walls. A faint freshness rests beneath the warm trace of oil lamps, subtle but clear. You move on at the same unhurried pace. The sound remains ahead of you, sometimes clearer for a moment, then softer again as the hall shifts. It does not call you quickly. It simply continues, patient and quiet, somewhere within the hidden spaces of the temple. The hall begins to narrow ahead, not suddenly, only by degrees as the wider passage gives way to something more enclosed. The lamps grow fewer here. Their light falls further apart, leaving longer stretches of shadow between one pool of amber and the next. You follow at the same quiet pace. The floor remains smooth beneath your bare feet. The walls feel closer now. The open length of the first hall has passed behind you, and the temple begins to gather itself into smaller spaces. A curtain hangs ahead, heavier than the linen you noticed before. Its folds are deeper, its color darker in the low light. Beyond it, the passage seems to turn away from the main hall altogether. The sound of water remains somewhere further in. Faint, steady, half hidden by stone and cloth. You move towards the curtain without hurry. The air is still, closer, more sheltered than before. Even the lamplight seems quieter here, held low against the walls and not allowed to travel far. To one side, a small recess has been cut into the stone. A shallow bowl rests there. Beside it, a sealed jar catches a thin line of light along its curved edge, then slips back into shadow. Simple things placed with care, waiting where they belong. When you reach the threshold, you pause for breath. The temple behind you has already softened into distance. What lies ahead feels more private, more hidden, not secret in any uneasy way, only deeper. The kind of quiet that has been kept for longer behind thicker cloth and narrower walls. Then, gently, you pass on towards the inner rooms. The curtain hangs across the opening ahead, heavier than it first seemed from a distance. In the dim light, its folds fall almost to the floor, thick enough to soften what lies beyond without fully hiding it. A braided cord has been tied back at one side, though only loosely, leaving the fabric to rest in deep, quiet gathers. As you step closer, the lamp behind you throws a softer light across the weave. You can see where the cloth is slightly denser in some places, finer in others, the surface shaped by long use and careful hands. Nothing about it feels ceremonial in a grand way. It feels practical, tended, part of the temple's night rhythm, like the lamps, the folded linen, the shallow bowls set in their niches. You pause at the opening for a moment. The air beyond seems calmer still. The wider hall behind you has not disappeared entirely, yet it already feels further away than it should. The curtain changes that. It marks a difference not only in space, but in quiet. When you pass through, the fabric brushes lightly against your shoulder and the back of your arm. The touch is brief, soft, but with enough weight to be felt. For that one moment, the wider passage behind you and the quieter space ahead seem to meet in the folds of the cloth. Then you are through. At once, the sound changes. What little echo remained in the hall is reduced here. The new corridor does not carry your footsteps so far. The walls stand closer. The ceiling feels lower, or perhaps only more enclosed. A lamp burns in a small recess nearby, its flame steadier than those in the wider hall, as though the air here is less touched by movement. Its glow reaches only a little way across the floor before giving itself over to shadow. You stand still for a breath and let the place settle around you. The stone beneath your feet remains cool. The air is close, though not heavy. There is a faint trace of oil, linen, and something fresher underneath, perhaps the distant water still waiting somewhere deeper within. Ahead, the corridor continues in dim amber intervals, more enclosed than before, with the sense of further turning still to come. You move on slowly, and with those few steps beyond the curtain, the temple feels altered again, smaller, quieter, and more intent on hidden rooms. The corridor extends ahead in a quieter order than the hall behind it. Along one wall, small alcoves have been cut into the stone at regular distances. Some are no deeper than a hand's breadth. Others open a little further back, enough to hold several objects together. Each one has been arranged with care. A lamp burns in the first niche you pass, its flame low, and even the light held close by the surrounding stone. In the next rests a shallow bowl, smooth at the rim, with a folded square of linen beside it. Further on, a small sealed jar stands near the back of another recess, its curved side catching a narrow line of amber before the shadow takes it again. Nothing has been placed carelessly. Nothing crowds the space. Every lamp, bowl, cloth, and jar seems to belong exactly where it is. You move slowly past them, and the corridor begins to feel shaped by this quiet repetition. Light, shadow, lamp, stone, bowl, cloth, then light again. The pattern continues without hurry, steadying the eye as much as the breath. Some alcoves are empty except for the marks they leave in the wall, pale outlines where a bowl or folded cloth must have rested earlier. Even those empty spaces feel part of the order. They do not suggest absence, only use. The temple does not seem filled for display. It seems prepared for the small needs of the night, one object at a time. The closer walls deepen that feeling. In the hall, the lamps mark the passage. Here, the alcoves shape it. They draw your attention not outward, but inward towards small softened details half held in shadow. The stone around each niche softens the light, so nothing shines sharply. The glow settles on curved bowl rims, on folded linen edges, on the smooth shoulder of a jar, then fades before it can travel far. The air remains still, faintly scented with warm oil, dry cloth, and the cooler hush carried from the hidden water deeper inside. Your footfalls remain soft on the stone floor, so soft that the corridor seems less walked through than entered by degrees. And as you continue past alcove after alcove, the hidden rooms of the temple begin to feel not distant now, but already close around you, kept in order, kept in calm, kept ready for rest. A smaller room opens from the corridor on your left. At first, it seems little more than a recess in shadow. Then the nearest lamp catches the edge of a stone basin within, and the room gathers itself softly into view. You step inside. The space is enclosed and quiet, with thicker walls and a lower feeling to the air, as though it has held the same settled air for many hours. Set slightly to one side, the basin rests on a carved stone base worn smooth along its rim. Water lies within it, clear and almost motionless. Only the smallest movement stirs across the surface, enough to loosen the reflection of the lamp into a thin gold line that shifts, then settles again. The coolness here is different from the corridor. It rises gently from the water, and from the stone that holds it, clean and faint, touching the skin without sharpness. Beside the basin, a folded cloth has been placed on a low ledge. Near it stands a small jar, narrow-necked and sealed, with a shallow dish resting beside it. Nothing in the room feels decorative. Everything feels set out, used when needed, returned to its place again. You move closer to the basin and pause there for a moment. The water holds the room in quiet fragments, lamp light, stone edge, shadow above, the pale suggestion of wall and ceiling beyond. It does not reflect clearly enough to draw you in. It only softens what is already there. One hand rests lightly on the rim. The stone is cool beneath the fingers, smoothed by time, steady. The kind of surface touched often without haste, as part of an evening pattern repeated many times before this night. No sound comes from the basin now except the faintest settling, so small it might almost be imagined. Yet the room itself seems shaped around that still water. The walls hold the quiet differently here. The air feels washed clean. Even the lamp burns with a softer edge, its light gentled by the nearness of stone and water together. After a few breaths, you step back. The folded cloth remains waiting on the ledge. The water lies calm again, and as you leave the washing room for the corridor, its cool stillness seems to come with you lightly into the hidden rooms beyond. Beyond the basin room, the corridor continues for a little way before widening into another sheltered space. This one is less a chamber than a recessed store set quietly into the wall, half room and half alcove, kept just out of the main passage. Shelves have been built into the stone. Deep niches, too. Within them rest folded cloths, rolled lengths of linen, sealed jars of oil, and small, shallow dishes stacked one inside another. Everything is arranged with patient care. Nothing leans. Nothing has been left half used or out of place. A bundle of linen rests on the lowest shelf, its edges squared neatly, pale in the low lamplight. Above it, two jars stand side by side, their lids sealed, their curved shoulders catching a soft amber line before fading back into shadow. Further in, a row of shallow dishes rests against the stone, each one clean, each one ready. You pause there for a moment. The space feels dry and still. It carries the faint scent of cloth, clay, and warm oil, with none of it stronger than the others. The shelves do not feel like storage in the ordinary sense. They feel like part of the temple's preparation. Everything here has its purpose. Everything waits quietly for the moment it is needed. One hand brushes the edge of a folded cloth as you pass. The linen is smooth and cool, tightly woven, its surface holding the last of the lamp warmth only where the light has touched it. Nearby, one of the jars gives off the faintest trace of resin through its seal. Not enough to fill the air, only enough to suggest what it holds. The deeper you move into the temple, the more these simple objects seem to gather meaning through their order. Folded cloth, sealed oil, stacked dishes, each thing prepared beforehand, each thing returned to its place. No part of the night here feels accidental. Even this small recessed room, tucked quietly beside the corridor, feels essential to the hush of the inner chambers. When you move on, the shelves remain behind in perfect calm. The cloths stay folded. The jars remain sealed. The dishes wait in their careful stacks. And the corridor ahead seems quieter still for having passed a place where everything has already been made ready. The corridor bends ahead, not sharply, only enough that the passage behind begins to fall out of sight. You follow it slowly. And as you round the turn, the last clear sense of the main hall disappears completely. The temple feels different here, more enclosed, more inward. The walls draw closer on either side, and the lamps are set further apart than before. Their light reaches only in small, calm intervals, leaving longer stretches of dimness between them. Nothing feels abandoned, only quieter, as though fewer footsteps come this way, and those that do have learned to move gently. A painted band follows the curve of the wall at shoulder height. In the low light it appears, then fades, then appears again as you move. The color is softened by time. Its line is enough to guide the eye round the bend without ever standing out too strongly. The floor remains smooth beneath your feet. Cool stone, even surface, quiet under each step. Your footfalls settle almost at once. Near the corner, a small lamp rests in a recess cut deeper into the stone than the others. Its flame is steady. The light gathers close around it, touching the edge of the passage, the curve of the wall, the floor below, and little more. Beyond it, the corridor continues into another sheltered stretch where the shadows deepen before the next lamp begins. The scent of oil and linen still lingers lightly. Beneath it remains that faint freshness of water from deeper in the temple. The air does not move. Even the quiet seems more settled here, held in place by the bend in the passage and the closeness of the walls. You move on without hurry, and with each step round the turning corridor, the outer rooms feel further away, not lost, only gently left behind. Beyond the turning corridor, the passage opens into a smaller chamber. Not large, not grand, only quiet and closed and carefully prepared. The room seems to have been made ready before the night fully settled, then left undisturbed. Low sleeping places have been arranged along the walls. Some are reed mats laid in even order. Others are simple raised couches with linen folded neatly at the head. Nothing in the room feels temporary. Everything has been placed with the kind of care that expects stillness to follow. A lamp burns in a deep wall niche. Its flame is low enough that the corners remain dim, yet steady enough to soften the whole chamber. The light rests on pale linen, on the woven pattern of the mats, on the smooth edge of a low bench near the wall. It does not reach far. It does not need to. The room already feels complete. You move slowly inside. The air feels warmer here than in the corridor, though still held quiet by stone. A small bowl of water stands near one sleeping place. Near another rests a folded cloth, its edge falling in a single clean line over the side of the couch. Simple objects, placed where they will be needed, left without fuss. The chamber carries no sense of waiting for activity, only a calm arrangement for rest. Even the spaces between the sleeping places feel considered. Enough room for ease, enough order for calm, nothing crowded, nothing left uncertain. You pause there for a moment and let the room settle around you. The woven mats, the folded linen, the lamp set low in its niche, the faint scent of oil and clean cloth in the still air. After the corridor's turn and the smaller hidden spaces beyond it, this chamber feels like the first room fully given over to sleep. Not the innermost one, not yet, but a room already closed to that deeper quiet. When you move on, you do so gently, as though not to disturb the calm that has already gathered there. And behind you, the chamber remains as it was, ordered, protected, and ready for rest. Beyond the resting chamber, the passage narrows again into a smaller working space. It is not hidden in the same way as the rooms behind the curtains. It feels tended, used softly. A low stone ledge runs along one wall. Upon it stand several lamps waiting to be checked, their flames already small, their light held close in the still air. You stop there for a moment. The nearest wick has darkened at the tip, only slightly, enough that the flame has grown thicker at its edge. A small folded cloth rests nearby, along with the simple tool used for trimming. Nothing ornate, nothing set out for display, only the plain things needed to keep the light low and steady through the night. You lift the first lamp carefully. The bowl is warm beneath your hands, not hot, just gently heated by the flame it has carried for hours. The wick is trimmed with one quiet motion. At once, the light changes. The flame grows smaller, cleaner. Its edge steadies, and the glow it casts becomes softer, more even against the stone. You move to the next lamp, then the next. Each one is attended in the same slow way. A brief pause, a careful touch. The darkened tip removed, the flame settling again into a lower, calmer shape. No movement is hurried. No gesture is wasted. The work seems to belong to the temple as naturally as the walls, the curtains, the basins, and the folded linen waiting in their rooms. As each lamp is tended, the space changes around you. The light loses its flicker. Shadows soften. The stone ledge, the wall above it, the floor below all seem to rest more easily in the gentler glow. Even the air feels quieter for it. A faint trace of warm oil lingers close to the lamps. Beneath it is the dry scent of cloth and the cooler hush carried from the inner water. The sounds are small, the brush of fabric, the light touch of the tool, the almost silent settling of each flame after it has been made right again. When the last lamp has been trimmed, you set it back in its place. The row now burns lower than before, steadier too, each flame no larger than it needs to be, each one enough. You remain there for a breath, looking at the calm line of light along the ledge. Then move on, leaving behind a passage made softer by care, where even the lamps seem to have settled into rest. Near the end of the stone ledge, a small oil jar stands beside the row of trimmed lamps. Its surface is smooth and dark in the low light, with only a thin amber line along one side where the flame catches it. Beside it rests a folded cloth for wiping the lip clean after each pour. You lift the jar slowly. It has a little weight to it, not heavy, only steady in the hand. You draw the first lamp closer. Its flame remains low after the trimming, quiet, and even while a small measure of oil is tipped into the shallow dish beneath the wick. The movement is careful. The oil gathers without sound, dark at first, then faintly gleaming as it catches the light. Nothing spills. Nothing runs over the edge. When the lamp is set back down, the flame holds as it was, small, clean, and ready to last. You move to the next lamp, then the next. Each one receives only what it needs. No more than that. The work has the same rhythm as before. The rhythm remains the same each time, lifting the jar, tipping a little oil into the dish, steadying the hand, wiping the rim, then setting the jar down again. With every lamp attended, the ledge seems to gather a deeper calm. The light remains low, but now it feels sustained rather than fading. Not brightened, only supported. The warm scent of oil deepens slightly in the still air. It mixes with the dry cloth, the stone, and the faint freshness still carried from deeper within the temple. The corridor around you stays quiet. Only the smallest sounds rise and fall. The soft touch of clay against stone, the brief brush of cloth at the jar's lip, the almost silent movement of oil settling in the shallow dishes. Nothing in the task asks for speed. The hand learns its pace from the lamps themselves. Each one receives its measure. Each one returns to stillness. When the last lamp has been filled, the jar is lowered once more to the ledge. The cloth is folded back beside it. The row of lamps now burns in a calm, even line, their light resting low against the wall and floor. And as you move on from the ledge, the passage behind you feels quietly sustained, as though the light there will keep its place through the long night without asking anything more. Beyond the lamp ledge, another chamber opens quietly from the passage. Here the sleeping places are fewer, more sheltered, set a little further apart, as though the room has been waiting for deeper rest. Low couches stand along the walls, their surfaces simple and orderly. At the head of each one lies folded linen waiting to be set in place. You move to the first couch and lift the upper cloth. It unfolds with a soft, dry weight, not heavy, only closely woven, cool to the touch, and smooth beneath the hand. You spread it carefully across the resting place. One corner is drawn straight, then the next. The linen settles flat, softening the firmness beneath it. A second cloth is placed above it, lighter than the first. Its edge falls in a clean line near the side of the couch. At the head, a rolled support is turned slightly and set straight, nothing elaborate, only the small adjustments that make a place feel ready before anyone lies down. You move to the next couch, then the next. Each couch receives the same quiet care. The cloth lifted, laid out, smoothed once with the palm, its edge straightened, the folded linen set neatly at the head. The repeated motion changes the room little by little. Pale linen begins to gather the lamp light. The low surfaces along the walls seem softer now, less like stone rooms prepared for use, more like sheltered places waiting for rest. A bench nearby holds the remaining cloths. Their folds are neat, their corners square, each one folded beforehand and brought out only when needed. The air carries the dry scent of clean woven fabric, warmed faintly by the lamps in their niches. Nothing in the room feels hurried. The work is quiet enough that the chamber seems to absorb it without echo. Even the smallest sounds remain close. The brush of linen over the couch, the light touch of a hand smoothing the surface, the soft shift of cloth being lifted, then laid down again. When the final couch has been prepared, you step back for a moment. The room looks the same as before in shape and shadow, yet it feels different now. Softer, calmer, more fully given over to sleep. The linen lies pale against the low resting places. The lamp light rests gently across it, and the chamber holds itself in complete readiness for the night still deepening around it. Near the basin room, a shallow clay bowl has been left filled and waiting. Its rim is smooth from use. Its sides are cool to the touch. You lift it carefully with both hands. The weight is steady, not heavy, only enough to ask for slowness. The water within shifts at first, then settles. A thin line of lamplight moves across the surface, trembles once, and grows still. You step back into the corridor. The passage feels narrower when something is carried through it with care. Each turn of the wall, each threshold stone, each lamp niche seems to draw a little closer into notice. Your steps remain soft. The bowl is held level. The water answers with only the smallest movement, a faint change in light just below the rim. As you pass the alcoves, the reflections alter one by one. Amber gathers across the surface, then slips away, then returns again at the next lamp. The pattern is quiet and unhurried. Light, water, shadow, stone, then light again. The air remains cool near the bowl. A faint freshness rises from it, clean against the warmer trace of oil and the dry scent of linen left in the rooms behind. The corridor does not feel empty. It feels connected. As though the water belongs to every part of the temple it passes through, the basin room, the lamp ledge, a chamber of low couches, the hidden spaces still further in. At one threshold, you slow a little more. The stone there is slightly raised, worn smooth at the center. The bowl remains steady in your hands. The water stirs once, making the reflected lamp light loosen into a soft gold curve before settling back into stillness. Nothing spills, nothing breaks the hush. Even the movement of carrying seems to belong to the night's order. A simple task, done carefully. Part of the same pattern as trimming wicks, pouring oil, and laying out linen. When you reach the next chamber, a low stone ledge waits near the wall. You lower the bowl onto it with quiet care. The base meets the stone with the softest touch. The surface of the water shivers once, then becomes still again. For a moment, the lamplight rests there in perfect calm, and the room around it seems gentler for the water having arrived. In the next chamber, the air feels slightly warmer, not by much, only enough to suggest that flame has been kept here for some time, low and steady, as it has in the rooms behind. Near the wall stands a small burner set upon a simple stone stand. It is not elaborate. A shallow dish rests above a solid base, both shaped for use rather than display, their surfaces softened by handling and by years of quiet attention. Beside it, on a narrow ledge, sits a small covered container holding pieces of resin prepared for the night. The lid is lifted slowly. At once, a faint fragrance rises from within. Dry at first, clean, a little sweet, though not heavily so. The scent is light enough that it does not fill the room. It simply waits there, close to the open container, as though the warmth has not yet drawn it fully out. Inside lie several small pieces of resin, each one slightly different in shape. Some are pale and clouded. Some hold a darker amber tone where the lamp light touches them. Their edges are uneven, as though broken carefully from a larger piece and kept aside in the measure needed for one quiet evening's use. You pause for a moment before taking one between finger and thumb. Its surface is dry and faintly rough. A second piece is chosen after it, smaller than the first. No more than that. The measure remains restrained, enough to scent the air lightly. Enough to leave a trace in the room and in the corridors beyond, but not enough to thicken the stillness or weigh it down. The resin is placed into the shallow burner dish with care. For a moment, nothing changes. Then the warmth beneath begins to reach it. The fragrance deepens first, gently, before any visible sign appears. It moves into the air in a slow unfurling, becoming rounder, warmer, more settled against the stone, and linen scents already held in the chamber. Only after that does the thinnest line begin to rise. It is almost too fine to see until it passes through the lamplight. There, for a moment, it becomes visible, a pale thread lifting in one narrow curve above the dish, loosening, drifting slightly, then thinning again into the stillness above. You remain where you are and watch it for a few breaths. The movement is softer than fabric shifting in a doorway, lighter than the smallest stir across water. It rises without urgency because there is nothing in the room to trouble it. No draft presses it sideways. No sudden movement breaks its shape. The chamber is still enough to let it keep its slow upward path until it fades from sight, leaving only its fragrance behind. That fragrance settles through the room in quiet layers. The first impression is resin, followed by warm stone and the faint trace of oil from the nearby lamps. Under all of it, the dry, clean scent of woven linen carried from the resting chambers beyond. No one part overtakes the others. They remain balanced, as though the air itself has been prepared with the same care as the lamps, the folded cloths, and the low sleeping places already made ready for the night. The burner gives off only a little warmth, but it changes the feel of this corner of the room. Not enough to alter the air entirely, only enough to make the space feel attended. Kept, a place where one more small thing has been set in order before rest deepens further inside the temple. You adjust the dish slightly on its stand, so it sits square and steady. Then the lid is lowered again over the remaining resin and placed back on the ledge. The thin line above the burner has all but vanished now, though the fragrance remains, lighter than before, already becoming part of the chamber rather than something separate within it. When you step back, the room feels softer at the edges. The lamplight seems gentler. The stone walls seem to hold the warmth a little more closely. And the quiet, touched now by that faint resin sweetness, feels even more complete than it did when you entered. Beyond the chamber, the passage narrows once more, not into darkness, into a quieter kind of light. At the far end, a doorway waits, its frame carved in shallow lines that catch the lamp glow along their edges. You slow as you approach it. The carving is not bright enough to show itself all at once. It appears gradually, one curved line, one leaf-like shape, then a section worn smoother where many hands must have passed before. The rest remains in shadow. That seems right for this part of the temple. Nothing declares itself fully. Everything arrives by degrees. You stop beside the doorway and let one hand rest lightly against the panel. The surface is cool where the light has not reached it, slightly warmer along the raised lines where the glow has settled. The carved shapes are softened by time, not blurred, only touched often enough that the edges no longer feel sharp beneath the fingers. The stone around the frame holds the same quiet as the rooms behind you. Yet something changes here. The pause feels deeper, as though this threshold marks a part of the temple where even the small tasks begin to fall away. Behind you remain the lamps, the linen, the water, the resin set warming in its burner. Ahead, the next rooms seem more inward still, more gathered. The lamp near the doorway burns lower than the others. Its light rests close to the frame and the floor below, leaving the space beyond in soft dimness. You do not need to see far into it. It is enough to sense the greater hush waiting there. For a few breaths, nothing moves, not the air, not the curtain further on, not the hand resting against the carved stone. The temple seems to hold itself completely still around this one narrow threshold. Then, gently, you lower your hand. And when you move forward again, it is with the feeling that the deeper rooms are no longer somewhere ahead, but already beginning around you. Beyond the carved doorway, another set of curtains hangs across the passage. These are heavier than the ones before. Their folds are deeper, their weave thicker, their weight enough to soften both light and sound before you have even passed through them. A lamp burns low beside the opening. Its glow rests against the cloth in uneven amber shapes, showing where the fabric falls in gathered lines and where the lower edge hangs almost still above the floor. You slow as you approach. The air here feels warmer, though also more hushed, as though the rooms beyond have been holding their stillness for much longer. When you reach the curtain, the fabric yields only gradually. It brushes first against your hand, then your shoulder, then closes softly behind you as you pass. At once, the chamber beyond feels different from the corridor. Not simply smaller, more enclosed in itself, more settled. The light is lower here, with the lamps placed further apart and set so close to the walls that their glow seems absorbed by stone and plaster rather than cast outward. Nothing reaches far. The room keeps its dimness gently. You pause just inside and let your eyes take in the space by degrees. The walls are pale where the light touches them and shadowed above. A faded painted border runs near the edge of the room, only partly visible in the low glow. The floor beneath your feet remains smooth and cool, though the air it rises into feels quieter, more sheltered, as though even small sounds would rather remain near the ground than travel upward. Behind you, the curtain has already fallen back into place. The passage beyond already feels separate, held back by cloth, while this chamber keeps its own order of stillness within. Ahead, the shape of the room begins to gather. A low wall, a darker space near the center. The faint suggestion of reflected light somewhere below the level of the lamps. Not enough yet to see clearly. Only enough to sense that the room is arranged around something calmer still. The air carries the faint resin from the burner behind you, though it is lighter now, almost absorbed into stone, linen, and lamp oil. Everything in the chamber feels softened by layers. Curtain behind, stone around, dim light held close, and deeper quiet waiting further in. You move forward slowly. And with those first steps beyond the heavier curtain, the temple feels altered again, less like a sequence of passages and rooms, more like a place steadily gathering you into its innermost stillness. As you move further into the chamber, the darker shape at its center begins to gather into form. A shallow pool lies set within the floor, lined in smooth stone and held by a low raised edge that runs round it in a quiet square. It is not large, not made to draw the eye in any grand way. It belongs to the room as naturally as the lamps belong to their niches, and the linen belongs to the resting places deeper within. You slow as you come near it. The water is almost perfectly still. Only the faintest movement touches its surface, so slight that it seems less like motion and more like the water breathing with the room around it. A lamp burns low along the wall, and its reflection lies across the pool in a thin, uneven band, gold at one edge, dark at the other, wavering only enough to soften the shape of the light without breaking it. The stone round the pool is cooler than the rest of the chamber. Not cold, only holding a steadier freshness close to the water. When you pass near the edge, that coolness rises lightly into the air, touching the skin with the same clean calm you noticed in the basin room, though quieter here, more settled, as though this water has been resting untouched for longer. You walk slowly round one side of the pool. Your steps make almost no sound on the smooth floor. The low edge guides the movement gently, asking for care without demanding it. The room seems arranged around the still center. The lamps do not compete with it. The walls do not press in upon it. Even the shadows appear to gather more softly here, as though the water draws the whole chamber into a calmer order. From this angle, the painted border along the wall appears again in fragments, broken by shadow and reflection. A pale line, a faded curve, the suggestion of leaf or feather, caught once in the lamp glow, then loosened again by the water below. Nothing asks to be studied for long. Everything remains within the same held stillness. You pause at the far side of the pool and look back across it. The curtain you passed through is no longer visible from here, only the dimness of the chamber beyond it. What remains clear is the water, and the low ring of stone around it, holding the reflection of the lamp in perfect restraint. No ripples spread. No sound rises from it. Only that fine resting line of light and the cool stillness gathered beneath it. After a few breaths, you continue on. The pool remains behind at the center of the room, quiet and unchanged. Yet the chamber feels different once you have passed it, as though the still water has drawn some of its calm into you, and the deeper rooms waiting beyond will now receive you more gently than before. Along the walls beyond the pool, a row of low benches runs through the chamber in measured intervals. They are simple in shape. Stone beneath, smooth wooden tops laid across in places. In others, only the broad ledge of the wall itself, worn softer by use and by time. Nothing about them feels ceremonial in a distant way. They feel lived with, not lived in exactly, but used often enough that the room carries the memory of quiet presence. You move slowly along one side of the chamber. The lamp light reaches the benches more easily here than it reaches the upper walls, so their edges remain gently clear while everything above them rises into dimness. A folded cloth rests at one end of the nearest bench. Further along, a shallow bowl has been left against the wall, its rim catching a faint line of gold before slipping back into shadow. The objects are few, enough to suggest use, not enough to crowd the stillness. Above the benches, painted plaster stretches across the wall in softened bands and fragments. The colors are muted in the low light, deep blue dimmed almost to gray, red earth tones warmed by amber flame, a pale line that may once have been white, now softened into the color of old stone dust and worn lime. The painted forms do not reveal themselves fully at once. You notice them in passing as you move, a leaf shape, a winged curve, a narrow border line, a cluster of petals or stars half lost where the plaster has faded. They are not sharp enough now to hold the eye for long. That seems right. It is simply letting these traces remain, held quietly within the walls while the night goes on around them. You pause beside one bench and let your hand rest lightly against its surface. The stone below is cool. The upper edge, where the lamp has touched it, carries the faintest stored warmth. Nearby, the wall rises smooth and dry, the painted border passing just above shoulder height before dissolving into shadow. The chamber feels layered here, bench below, painted wall above, low light resting between, the pool behind you keeping it still center. Nothing in the room stands forward. Everything remains in relation to something else. The benches give shape to the walls. The walls hold the color. The color softens into shadow, and the shadow lets the room stay calm. When you move on, the painted forms begin to disappear again at the edge of sight. The bench remains against the wall. The folded cloth remains where it was left. The shallow bowl keeps its little crescent of lamp light. And the chamber, with its low places and faded painted lines, seems to hold its beauty most completely by not asking to be noticed all at once. Beyond the painted wall, another chamber opens from the side of the inner room. It is smaller than the one with the pool. Lower too, or so it seems, because the light is kept so close to the walls and the air rests so quietly within it. This room has been given over almost entirely to rest. Sleeping mats have been laid out in even order along the sides, each one placed with enough space beside the next for ease and stillness. They are woven from reed and fiber, their patterns plain and regular softened here, and they're where use has pressed them flatter through time. At the head of each mat lies a folded length of linen. Near some rests a small support, rolled and set straight. Near one wall, a shallow bowl stands ready, its surface dark in the low light. Nothing feels newly arranged. Everything appears settled into place. The room carries the settled calm of a place prepared earlier and left exactly as it should be. You move slowly between the mats, careful not to disturb the gentle order of them. The lamp burns in a deep wall recess, far enough back that its flame appears held inside the stone itself. Its light falls softly over the nearest woven surfaces, catching the raised pattern of the reedwork, the pale edges of linen, the smooth curve of a bowl, then fading before it reaches the corners. Those corners remain dim, though not empty, only out of the light, as though the room has no need to show more than this. The air here is different again, not cooler, not warmer, only more settled, as though it has had longer to grow still. The scents held in it are faint and balanced: dry woven fiber, clean linen, a trace of oil from the lamp, and beneath all of it, the softened freshness that seems to have traveled from the pool room beyond. You pause beside one of the mats and look down at it. The weave is simple, firm but not harsh, made to support rest without softness being piled upon softness. The folded linen at its head lies in a clean square, one edge slightly lifted where the cloth has settled against itself. Nothing has been placed for ornament, everything belongs to use. Yet in that usefulness, the room has become quietly beautiful. The repeated order of the mats gives it rhythm. The pale linen gives it light. The dimness between one sleeping place and the next gives it calm. You continue on at the same unhurried pace, passing one resting place after another. Each one remains complete in itself. Each one feels undisturbed, self-contained, waiting only in the simplest sense of the word, not expecting, not asking, only waiting to receive the hush of the night. By the time you reach the far side of the chamber, the room has gathered itself around you fully. The woven mats, the folded cloths, the lamp set deep into the wall, the bowls standing near at hand, all of it held in quiet order. And as you leave it behind, the chamber remains what it has been from the moment you entered, a room shaped not by decoration or display, but by the calm arrangement of places made for sleep. Beyond the chamber of sleeping mats, a narrower opening appears in the wall. It would be easy to miss at first glance. The light does not fall directly into it, and the passage leading there is partly screened by a hanging length of linen that rests almost motionless in the still air. Only when you draw a little nearer does the space begin to show itself. Not a full chamber, but a smaller side room set back from the main way, quiet even by the measure of these inner rooms. You turn towards it slowly. The opening is narrower than the others you have passed through, and the threshold stone is worn smooth at its center. Inside, the air feels closer, not heavy, only held more fully within the walls. A single lamp burns in a deep recess, its flame so low that the room is shaped more by shadow than by light. Even so, enough can be seen. Shelves have been built into the stone. A low chest or ledge runs beneath them. Along these surfaces stand sealed jars, covered bowls, folded cloths, and small wrapped bundles, each one placed with quiet precision and left undisturbed. Nothing in the room has been crowded together. There is space between the jars, space beside the bowls, space enough for each object to keep its own outline in the dimness. The jars differ slightly in height and shape. Some are rounded at the shoulder and narrow at the neck. Others are broader and lower, with fitted lids sealed smooth against the rim. The covered bowls sit nearer the front of one shelf, their lids rising in soft curves that catch a faint crescent of amber before slipping back into shade. Near them lie folded lengths of cloth, stacked one upon another with their edges aligned. Further back, where the light thins, a few smaller bundles rest against the wall, wrapped and tied, their shapes indistinct but carefully contained. You move a little further inside. The room keeps its silence closely. Even your footsteps seem to remain low against the floor, as though sound has less wish to travel here. The scent is different too, with clay nearest, then dry linen, and beneath both a faint trace of resin and oil held, so lightly in the air that it seems to belong to the jars and bowls themselves rather than to the room around them. Nothing here feels forgotten. Nothing feels merely stored away. The room carries another kind of order, not the open readiness of the lamps or the sleeping mats, but the quieter order of things set aside, protected, and kept until needed. That difference changes the feeling of the space. The chamber of mats was prepared to receive rest. This room feels prepared to preserve calm, to hold what belongs to the temple night without leaving it exposed. You pause beside the nearest shelf. The stone beneath your hand is cool. The edge of one cloth is smooth and tightly folded. A jar catches a small line of lamp light along its side, then loses it again as you shift. The covered bowls remain closed, and the wrapped bundles remain still. Everything in the room seems content to remain exactly as it is. After a few breaths, you turn back towards the doorway. From there, the room looks smaller still, almost hidden again, as though it has already begun to withdraw behind its own dimness. The lamp continues to burn low in the recess. The jars remain sealed and bowls remain covered. Folded cloths keep their careful lines, and when you step softly back into the passage, the side room stays behind in complete quiet, a place tucked within the temple's deeper spaces, holding its order without needing to be seen. Beyond the hidden side room, the passage narrows once more and grows quieter as you follow it. The walls remain close on either side, but the space ahead begins to feel less like another corridor and more like an arrival not yet fully entered. At the far end, a final doorway waits. It is smaller than some of the thresholds you have passed through, and simpler too. No wide hall opens beyond it. No larger chamber announces itself at once. Instead, there is only a narrow frame of stone, a curtain hanging within it, and a low, softened light reaching out across the floor. Its simplicity gives the doorway its own kind of presence. It does not need grandeur. The stillness gathered around it is enough. You move towards it slowly. The threshold stone is worn smooth where many quiet steps have crossed before. A lamp burns somewhere beyond the curtain, not brightly, but low enough that the light seems to rest rather than shine. It touches the lower folds of the fabric, the base of the doorway, and a small stretch of floor before fading into shadow. The rest remains concealed. Only the smallest hints appear. The pale edge of plaster within, the suggestion of a wall beyond, the faintest warmth of linen and resin carried into the passage. By the time you reach the doorway, the temple behind you has altered in feeling. The rooms you pass through are still there in their order. The halls, the alcoves, the basin room, the ledges of lamps, the chamber of low couches, the inner pool, the sleeping mats, the hidden shelves of jars and covered bowls. But they no longer seem separate. They feel gathered now, layer behind layer, as though each one has been leading quietly to this place. You pause before the curtain and let the stillness settle fully. Nothing moves in the passage. The air remains close and even. The lamp beyond the fabric holds its low flame without flicker, and the quiet here feels so complete that it seems not merely to surround the doorway, but to rest within it. The stone at the threshold is cool beneath your feet. The curtain hangs with a gentle weight, not stirring, not lifting, only keeping the inner room held back for one moment longer. There is no sense of secrecy in that, only protection, only the feeling of a space kept more carefully than any before it. When you breathe, the scents are faint and balanced. The warm trace of lamp oil remains. So does the dry cleanliness of linen. Beneath both lies the softer sweetness of resin, now thinned and folded so lightly into the air that it seems part of the temple itself. Nothing asks to be done here. Nothing waits to be arranged. The tasks of the night have already fallen away behind you. What remains is the quiet of arrival, and the sense that beyond this final hanging cloth lies a room more sheltered than any you have yet entered. After a few breaths, you step closer, and the last threshold yields quietly beneath your feet. Beyond the final curtain, the inner chamber receives you with a quiet, so complete it seems already settled before you arrive. The fabric parts softly as you pass, then falls back into place behind you with scarcely a sound, and at once the room feels distinct from everything that came before it. Not separate in the sense of being cut off, more as though all the other rooms have been leading towards this one, and now, having brought you here, have withdrawn into stillness around it. You pause just inside the entrance and let your eyes adjust to the low, even light. The chamber is smaller than the rooms beyond the pool and the sleeping mats, yet it does not feel narrow. Its proportions are close and balanced. The walls rise in pale, quiet planes, catching only what the lamps give them. The floor is smooth beneath your feet, cool still, though the air above it holds a gentler warmth than the passage outside. Nothing in the room asks to be looked at quickly. Everything appears by degrees. A lamp burns in a niche set low into one wall. Another stands further off, its flame reduced, so far that it seems less like a light cast into the room than a small point of warmth held carefully within it. Their glow does not travel far. It rests on the lower part of the walls, on the edge of a bench, on the pale fold of linen already laid in place, and leaves the upper corners dim and undisturbed. That dimness does not make the room feel uncertain. It makes it feel protected. A low resting place has been prepared near the inner side of the chamber, not in the exact center, but where the room seems naturally to gather into calm. The linen laid over it catches the faint lamp glow in softened folds. Beside it, a low bench stands against the wall with a folded cloth upon it, and near the bench, a small bowl has been set where it can be reached without effort. These things do not seem arranged for display. They belong here as simply and completely as the pool belonged to its chamber and the lamps belonged to their niches. The room has not been decorated into stillness. It has been made ready for it. You take a few slow steps further in. The air feels different once the curtain is behind you. Closer, though not close in any confining way. It rests evenly against the skin, carrying the faint warmth of lamp oil, the dry, clean scent of linen, and the last softened thread of resin from the rooms you passed through. All of it has settled here lightly. No single note presses forward. Even the scents seem to have found their places and gone still. As you move, your footfalls make almost no sound. The chamber receives them and keeps them low. It is easy to imagine that once you stop moving, the room will return at once to the exact quiet it held before you entered. That gives each object a particular calm presence. The lamp in its niche, the folded cloth on the bench, the pale resting place waiting in the lower light, the wall beyond, smooth and dim, holding the edge of shadow without hardness. For a moment, you simply stand there, taking in the fact of the chamber itself. After the outer court, the hall, the recesses, the basin room, the ledges of lamps, the chambers of couches and mats, the hidden shelves and jars, this room feels less like another space to pass through than the place those others have been keeping for. The temple has been growing quieter step by step. Here, that quiet has fully gathered. It rests in the walls, in the low flames, in the linen already laid smooth, in the air that no longer seems to move at all. Nothing remains to be sought further in. There is no deeper passage, no room beyond this one asking to be entered next. The inward journey has come to rest here. You step at last towards the prepared resting place. The linen holds its pale softness in the lamp light. The bench remains against the wall. The small bowl waits nearby. And the dream chamber, enclosed behind curtain, stone, and layers of hidden rooms, seems already to know how to keep the night around you without letting any part of it press too near. Only after you have stepped further into the chamber do you notice the narrow opening set high in the wall. It is small enough that it does not draw attention at once. The room remains a room of lamps first, of stone, linen, and enclosed stillness. Yet from that high slit in the wall, a pale thread of moonlight enters and falls quietly into the chamber. It does not spread far. It reaches only one part of the room, touching the upper wall first, then descending in a soft, angled band across the stone before resting near the edge of the prepared bed. The light is cooler than the lamps. Not bright, not sharp, silvered, faint, and distant, carrying with it the feeling of the night sky without opening the room back out to it. That is what makes it so gentle here. The outer night is present, but only in this narrow measure. A reminder, not an arrival. You stand still and watch the meeting of the two kinds of light. The lamps keep their low amber glow near the walls and floor. The moonlight falls from above in a paler line. Where they come nearest one another, the chamber seems quieter still, as though the room is holding both warmth and coolness in careful balance. The pale linen on the resting place catches that high light along one edge, not enough to turn white, only enough to show its weave a little more clearly before the silver fades again into softer shadow. The bench against the wall receives a narrower touch of it, just along one corner. Above, the plaster near the opening appears lighter where the moon finds it, while the upper reaches of the room beyond remain dim and undisturbed. Nothing has been changed by this light. The room is not transformed by it. That matters. It remains the same sheltered chamber it was when you entered. The moonlight only lets one small part of the outer sky rest here for a while, quietly, without breaking the enclosure the temple has built around you. You move a little nearer to the resting place. From this angle, the narrow opening itself is no longer visible, only the path of its light. It lies across the chamber with a stillness that seems older even than the lamps. No flicker touches it. No movement changes its shape. While the flame in the niche lives gently in the air, this pale light simply remains, steady and far removed, as though it has crossed a long distance only to arrive here in complete silence. The air beneath it feels cooler, only slightly. A fine difference, barely felt, yet enough to set one part of the chamber apart from another. The temple keeps the warmth of oil, cloth, and stone close to the ground, while the moonlight brings a thinner coolness from above. Together they make the room feel more fully held. Together they make the room feel more fully enclosed and gently held. That distinction stays with you as you stand there. The chamber does not shut the world out entirely. It softens it, filtering what enters until only the gentlest things remain. A little lamp glow, a little fragrance, a little moonlight. Nothing more than the room can keep in balance. After a few breaths, you let your gaze lower again from the pale band on the wall to the prepared resting place below it. The silver light remains where it has fallen. The lamp continues its low amber burning, and the dream chamber, touched now by both, seems to hold the outer night and its own inner stillness in the same quiet care. As the chamber settles more fully around you, its scent begins to gather into notice. Not all at once, and not because any one fragrance grows stronger than the rest. It is simply that here, in the innermost room, nothing competes for attention. The air is still enough to let each trace remain where it belongs. Nearest is the clean, dry scent of linen. It rises from the prepared resting place, from the folded cloth on the bench, from the woven fibers that have been aired, folded, and laid out long before night deepened. There is nothing sharp in it, only that quiet freshness held by cloth that has been kept carefully and touched with clean hands. Beneath it rests the warmer scent of lamp oil, not thick, not smoky, only a low golden warmth in the air, as though the small flames in their niches have left behind a softness that can be sensed as much as seen. It settles close to the walls and lower through the room, mixing with the mild dryness of stone that has held warmth near the surface while keeping its deeper cool beneath. Then, lighter still, there is the faint trace of incense. By now, it has traveled so far from the burner that it no longer feels separate from the chamber. It does not drift through the room in visible threads as it did before. It has thinned and folded itself into the air, leaving only the gentlest sweetness behind, so quiet that you notice it less as a new scent than as a soft rounding of all the others. That is what gives the chamber its particular calm. Nothing stands apart. The linen, the oil, and the softened trace of resin remain in balance, none of them overtaking the others. Each one remains in balance, as though the air itself has been prepared with the same care as the lamps, the folded cloths, the shallow bowls, and the sleeping places in the rooms behind. You remain still for a few breaths and let that balance settle more deeply. The room feels tended through scent as much as through light. The prepared bed carries the freshness of cloth. The wall niche carries the quiet warmth of flame. The stone floor beneath your feet holds the faint mineral coolness of enclosed space. And through all of it runs that softened trace of resin, now so light that it seems less like incense burning somewhere in the temple, and more like the memory of it held gently in the walls. When you breathe, the chamber feels clean, not empty, not bare, only fully prepared. The kind of room where nothing unnecessary has been left to distract the senses, and what remains has been kept in such careful proportion that the whole space grows calmer the longer you stand within it. The pale linen nearest, the warm oil beneath, the faded sweetness of resin further back, then the almost silent coolness of stone holding everything in place. By now, the scents have become part of the room's calm. They no longer arrive one by one. They simply remain, lightly and completely, making the dream chamber feel not only sheltered to the eye, but settled in every part of the air around you. At last, you move the final little distance towards the prepared bed. The journey through the temple has carried you inward by slow degrees, from open court to shadowed hall, from hall to corridor, from corridor to chamber, until every step has brought you further from the outer night and deeper into stone, lamp light, linen, and quiet. Here, that movement changes. There is nowhere further to enter now. What remains is the softer act of settling, as though all the rooms behind have done their work and left this one ready for rest. The bed has been made with the same careful restraint that has shaped everything in the temple. A smooth cloth lies beneath. Another, lighter one rests above it. Near the head, a rolled support has been set in place. One edge of the linen holds a little amber from the lamp, while higher up a faint thread of moonlight touches the cloth where it falls nearest the wall. The low bench remains where it has been throughout, with its folded linen untouched. Nearby, the small bowl keeps its dark stillness. Nothing here feels recent. The room has been ready for some time. You pause beside the bed and let your hand rest on the linen before drawing the upper cloth back. The fabric feels cool where the moonlight has touched it, and warmer where the lamp glow has been resting longer. Its weave is close and smooth beneath your palm, carefully kept, carefully folded, and laid out with the same exactness that has marked every room you pass through on the way here. When you lower yourself at last, you do so without hurry. The body meets the bed gradually. First, the weight leaves your legs, then your hips, then your back and shoulders. By the time your whole shape is resting there, the chamber seems quieter still, as though the room has been waiting for this one simple change. The support beneath you is steady and well made, softened by cloth rather than excess softness, so that you feel held at once by firmness, order, and care. From here, the room is no longer the same room you entered while standing. Seen from the bed, the walls rise more softly. The lamp in its niche is no longer something ahead of you, only a small held warmth off to one side. The moonlight no longer crosses the chamber as a distant band, but lingers at the edge of sight, pale against linen and stone. The upper walls remain dim. The ceiling stays in shadow. What matters now is closer than that. Cloth against skin, still air resting lightly across your face. The faint warmth of one lamp, the quiet held between one breath and the next. You make one small adjustment at the headrest, and that is enough. One shoulder settles more deeply. The back eases. The muscles that carried you through corridor after corridor begin to loosen their hold, not all at once, but in the same gradual way the temple itself drew you inward. Nothing has to be forced. The room seems shaped for this exact moment, when effort leaves by degrees and rest begins to take its place. The scents are gentler from here. Linen feels nearest. Beneath it lies the warm trace of lamp oil. Further back, hardly separate now from the room itself, is the softened sweetness of resin. Under everything rests the calm mineral coolness of stone, holding the chamber in place. Even the bed begins to lose its coolness where warmth meets cloth, so that the body and the room no longer feel entirely separate. Beyond the curtain, the temple remains in its ordered stillness. The outer rooms lie one behind another exactly as you left them. The hidden shelves, the sleeping mats, the painted walls, the inner pool, the ledges of lamps, the basin room, the first hall beyond. Yet they no longer ask to be followed in the mind. They have become the layers of shelter around you, each one holding back a little more of the outer world, so that this innermost room can remain undisturbed. The cloth settles lightly over you while the lamp keeps its low flame nearby. The bowl remains near at hand, and above, the high opening still holds its narrow measure of moonlight. And the dream chamber, which at first seemed like the end of a long inward path, now feels quieter than any destination. It feels like a room already prepared to hold the body gently while it lets go. There is nowhere further to go tonight. Lying here, you have entered the stillness completely. Lying there, you begin to notice how the temple sounds from within the bed, not as it did while you were moving through it, not as separate rooms opening one after another. From here, the sounds reach you softened by distance, cloth, stone, and still air, until they seem less like separate noises and more like small signs that the calm extends far beyond the chamber where you rest. Somewhere beyond the curtain, water shifts. It is only a slight sound, a faint settling in a basin, or the smallest touch against the edge of the inner pool. It does not repeat at once. It comes once softly, then leaves the stillness whole behind it. A little later, further off, fabric moves, not much. Only the lightest stir of hanging linen, as though a curtain has altered its fold and then gone still again. The sound is so slight it might almost be missed, yet from where you lie it seems to belong perfectly to the temple night. Nothing in it asks for attention. Nothing in it disturbs the room. If anything, it makes the chamber feel more sheltered, because it reminds you that the spaces beyond remain quietly in order, each one resting in its own way. You do not need to picture them clearly now. The basin room with its cool stone and still water, the hidden chamber of shelves and covered bowls, the low sleeping mats, the pool holding its thin line of reflected lamplight. They no longer come before the mind as places to move through. They feel instead like layers of quiet surrounding the bed, each one holding its own small portion of the night. Another sound reaches you after a time, gentler still. Perhaps the near silent settling of cloth where it hangs by the doorway. Perhaps the faintest answer of water to itself somewhere further back. Each sound remains small enough that the stillness is never broken. It only deepens around them. That is what changes here, lying down. When you were walking through the temple, each room seemed to wait ahead of you. Now the rooms lie around you, already gathered into place, their lamps low, their linens folded, their surfaces still, their quiet crossing the stone passages one to another until all of it comes to rest at the bed where you lie. The sounds prove that without ever insisting on it. A little water, a little fabric, then silence again, but not an empty silence. A silence shaped by distance, softened by walls, and held within the order of the temple. The lamp in your chamber continues its low, steady burning. The moonlight remains where it fell. The covering lies lightly over you, already warmed a little where it rests. And beyond the curtain, the hidden rooms continue to keep their own calm, so gently that even their smallest movements seem made not to interrupt rest, but to watch over it. You listen for a while without effort. The next sound may come, or it may not. It does not matter. The temple has already told you enough. It is settled, and it is holding you within it. And lying here in the dream chamber, you are held within it too. After a while, even the faint sounds from the outer rooms begin to matter less than the feeling they leave behind. You no longer listen for water. You no longer notice whether a curtain has shifted somewhere beyond the chamber. What remains is a wider sense of the temple gathered around you, not as separate rooms now, but as one enclosed stillness built in layers. Lying here, you can feel that layering without needing to picture it clearly. Beyond the curtain is the passage. Beyond that, the smaller chambers with their mats, benches, jars, bowls, folded cloths, and low burning lamps. Further back still lie the pool, the painted walls, the ledges, the basin room, the first hall, and beyond all of them the outer court open to the night. Yet none of those places presses forward in the mind. They do not need to. They are no longer places to travel through. They have become the quiet structure holding this chamber in its center. That changes the way the room feels around you. The bed beneath you is only one part of its shelter. The walls are another. The curtain is another. And beyond those, all the hidden rooms you cross to reach this place now seem to rest one behind another, like folded layers of cloth, each one softening the world a little more before it can come near. The temple does not feel large in that moment. It feels complete. Its stillness has shape. Its order has weight, not a heavy weight, a steady one. The kind that allows the body to stop holding itself quite so carefully because something else is doing the holding now. You lie there and let that feeling deepen. The lamp remains low in its niche. The pale measure of moonlight still touches one part of the wall and the edge of the linen. The air has gone fully still. The scents that seemed separate before have settled into one dim atmosphere, so balanced now that you notice them only as part of the room itself. Even the stone beneath everything seems less like a surface and more like a presence, keeping the chamber steady, keeping the night at the right distance. That quiet reaches you where you lie. It settles around the shoulders, the back, the hands now resting still, the breath moving more quietly than before. Nothing asks to be done. Nothing remains unfinished. The temple has already received the night into itself. Now it receives your rest in the same way. You remain there for a few more breaths, aware not of any single object or sound, but of the chamber resting within the wider shelter of the temple. Then even that sense begins to soften. The rooms beyond blur into shelter. The shelter deepens into stillness. And the stillness, gathered layer by layer around the bed where you lie, becomes enough to rest inside without following any further. After a while, the chamber seems to grow quieter still, not because anything changes suddenly, only because the light begins, little by little, to soften. The lamps have already been burning low. Now their flames grow smaller again, until the glow they cast rests even closer to the walls than before. Nothing is extinguished. Nothing falls into darkness all at once. The room simply eases towards a dimmer calm, as though the night within the temple is being gathered in more closely. From where you lie, The change is gradual enough to feel almost like a deepening of rest rather than a change in light. The niche lamp to one side keeps its small amber flame, but its reach no longer extends as far across the wall. The folds of linen near the bed lose some of their brightness. The bench recedes a little further into shadow. The bowl beside it holds less reflection now, its dark surface giving back only the faintest suggestion of light before settling again into dimness. This gentler light changes the room without altering its shape. The walls remain where they were. The moonlight still rests in its narrow place above. The bed continues to hold you in the same steady way. Yet everything feels more sheltered now, as though the chamber has drawn its quiet closer round the resting place and allowed the outer edges of the room to soften. You lie still and let the dimming happen around you. There is no need to follow it closely. It belongs to the same quiet order as everything else the temple has prepared for the night. This too feels like part of the temple's care. Light reduced to what is needed, nothing more. As the glow lowers, the distinction between wall and shadow becomes gentler. The corners of the chamber no longer ask to be seen clearly. The pale linen nearest your hand keeps a trace of warmth in the soft amber light, while the rest falls back into a calmer dimness where shape matters less and stillness matters more. Even the air seems altered by it. Not darker in any heavy way, only quieter. The room no longer feels lit for waking. It feels lit for keeping watch over sleep. That feeling settles slowly through the body. Breath grows easier. The eyes no longer want to follow the room. The low flame becomes simply a small held presence at the side of the chamber, enough to warm the stone and leave a last gentle glow against the wall. And because it remains, however faintly, the darkness never feels empty. It feels tended. After a few more breaths, the chamber has reached its new balance. The lamps remain, but lower than before. The moonlight still keeps its pale measure high above. The bed holds its quiet warmth where cloth meets skin. And all around you, the dream chamber seems to have moved 1 degree deeper into rest without asking anything of you except that you remain where you are and let it happen. From where you lie, the curtain at the entrance to the chamber can still be felt, even when it is hardly seen. Its shape remains there in the dimness, a soft boundary between this room and the passage beyond, holding the doorway without drawing attention to itself. Now, with the lamps lowered and the chamber resting deeper in shadow, it hangs completely still. No breath of air reaches it. No fold lifts or alters. The cloth simply remains where it has fallen, its weight held evenly from top to hem, its presence quiet and assured. That stillness changes the room in a way that is difficult to name at first. Nothing has been shut, nothing barred, yet the unmoving curtain makes the chamber feel more fully enclosed, as though the last small possibility of movement between one space and another has gone to rest. The temple beyond is still there in all its ordered layers, but here, in the innermost room, the fabric keeps the night arranged exactly as it is. You do not need to look towards it for long. It is enough to know it remains there, keeping its place. The cloth has the same calm weight as everything else the temple has held carefully through the night. The folded linen on the bench, the covering drawn lightly over you, the woven mats in the rooms beyond, and the heavier curtains further back in the passage all belong to the same quiet order. This curtain is part of that order too. It separates without severing. It shelters without closing in. Its stillness is what matters most. Because it does not move, the chamber seems to keep its warmth more closely now. The air rests lightly around your face and hands, with none of the faint shifting that even a small stir of cloth might have carried. The scents remain where they are, balanced and settled. The low lamp glow stays near the wall. The moonlight remains high and pale, unchanged. Everything holds, everything stays. Seen from the bed, the curtain is no longer really an object in the room. It has become part of the chamber's hush, part of the way the inner room keeps itself separate from the quieter darkness beyond. Even the line where the fabric meets the floor seems softened now, as though shadow has risen gently to meet it. The doorway behind it does not ask to be imagined. The corridor beyond does not need to be followed. They remain where they are, while the chamber itself grows simpler. Nothing else needs to come forward. You rest there and let the stillness of the hanging cloth become part of your own stillness. The body no longer expects movement from the room. The ear no longer listens for it. And the dream chamber, held at its threshold by that motionless fall of linen, feels complete in a new way, not only quiet, but fully kept. Somewhere beyond the chamber, further back through the rooms you crossed before lying down, the inner pool still holds what remains of the lowered light. You do not see it directly from where you rest. It comes to you differently now, not as an image fully before the eyes, but as a quiet impression returning through memory and stillness together. The pool lies where it has lain all night, level with the stone, enclosed by its low edge, holding the room around it in calm reflection. Only now the light upon it has thinned. What earlier rested there in a clearer band has grown fainter, until the surface keeps only the smallest trace. A narrow glimmer, a softened line, something between light and its memory. That is enough. The pool does not need brightness to remain part of the temple's stillness. If anything, this lesser light suits it more closely. Water and shadow now seem nearer to one another than before, the reflection no longer standing apart, but settling into the dark surface as gently as the chamber settles around you. You can almost imagine the low edge of stone beside it, cooler than the floor around it, and the quiet way the wall light would meet the water there without reaching far. Nothing stirs it. No ripple spreads across it. If there is movement at all, it is so slight that it belongs less to water than to the way dim light loosens itself before disappearing. That image remains with you for a while, not sharply, not as something to think about, only as part of the same inward atmosphere the temple has been gathering around you from the moment you crossed the outer court. It reminds you that rest continues through all the rooms, not only here where you lie. After a few breaths, even that image begins to soften. The glimmer grows fainter in the mind. The water returns to darkness, and what remains is not the sight of the pool itself, but the feeling of it, a cool, still center somewhere within the temple, holding the last thin light until even that is ready to rest. As the chamber settles further into dimness, the walls begin to make themselves felt not by appearance, but by what they have been doing all this time, holding the room in its own quiet and keeping the outer night at the right distance. Beyond them, the darkness still lies over the court and the temple roofs. The wider night remains where it has always been, stretching past stone, past open air, past the narrow high opening where the moonlight enters in its careful measure. Yet here, in the innermost chamber, none of that reaches you fully. The walls receive it first and soften it before anything of it can come near. That is why the room feels protected without ever feeling closed. The stone does not press inward. It simply surrounds the chamber with a steadiness that has been present from the beginning, in the threshold beneath your feet, in the basin worn smooth by use, in the ledges cut into the corridors, in the low edges of the pool, and in the benches resting against the painted walls. Here, around the bed where you lie, that same steadiness gathers into its quietest form. The air remains even. The lamp keeps its small warmth near the wall. The moonlight stays high and pale. All of it rests within the shelter the stone has made. From here, the temple no longer needs to be imagined as room after room. It feels more like one shelter built inward by degrees, each passage and chamber softening the world a little more before it can reach this place. The hidden rooms behind you, the curtains, the corridors, the halls further out, all have their part in that. But here, in this final chamber, the walls hold the last and calmest center. That certainty changes the way rest feels in the body. The shoulders loosen a little more. The hands remain still. Breath moves without effort. It is easier to let go when the room itself feels so certain of its own stillness. The stone keeps the dimness settled in the corners. It holds the cooler quiet beneath the warmer air. It prevents even the smallest sounds from traveling too far. Everything remains in balance because the chamber is so well held. After a while, the walls seem less like surfaces than like the quiet shape of the room itself, keeping lamp light, moonlight, linen, air, and sleep in their proper relation. Nothing is shut out harshly. Nothing enters too quickly. The world beyond remains where it should be, and this inner room remains what it has become through the long, slow night, a sheltered place steadied by stone and kept ready for rest. Lying there, with the chamber held in warm dimness around you, the body begins to follow the room more completely. Nothing announces the change. It happens in the same quiet way everything has happened here by degrees. The breath that carried you through the outer court and along the stone passages now begins to settle into a slower rhythm, not deliberately, not because you ask it to. The room seems to draw it into calm simply by being as it is. Each breath leaves a little more of the day behind. Each exhale seems to sink more easily into the linen, into the bed, into the still air resting lightly across your face. The body no longer feels separate from the chamber in the way it did when you first entered. The cloth beneath you has warmed where it meets your shape. The covering lies lightly and without weight. The air remains even. The lamp keeps its low glow at the edge of the room. The pale moonlight still rests high above, too faint now to ask for more than the briefest notice. All of it remains as it was. What changes is the way you rest within it. The shoulders no longer hold so carefully. The jaw loosens. The hands remain where they have settled. Even the muscles along the back seem to give way a little more, as though the body has understood at last that nothing further will be required of it tonight. The hidden room keeps its own stillness around that understanding. The curtain does not move. No sound reaches you now from beyond the chamber. The walls continue to hold the night at its gentle distance, and within that shelter, the breath grows quieter, softer, less distinct, until it seems less like something you are doing, and more like part of the room itself. Then, after a while, even that simple rhythm asks for less notice. The temple has carried you inward through thresholds, corridors, and guarded chambers. Now the hidden room carries you the rest of the way by asking for nothing at all. You lie there and let the calm deepen naturally. The linen holds you, the bed supports you, the air rests against you. The chamber remains unchanged, and because it remains unchanged, the body no longer needs to stay alert to it. That is what makes the stillness here so complete. Nothing shifts, nothing calls, nothing enters. The room simply holds. And within that held quiet, the breath slows a little more, until the body seems to rest not only in the chamber, but with it, as though both have settled into the same calm measure together. By now, the chamber no longer feels like a place you entered. It feels like what was left when every doorway had been crossed, every lamp lowered, every cloth put in order, and every small task of the night brought gently to rest. Nothing more needs doing, nothing more needs following. Around you, the room has settled into its final quiet, and your body has begun to do the same. Near the wall, a low flame continues to burn with just enough warmth to soften the stone around it. High above, the narrow opening still holds a faint measure of moonlight, so slight now that it barely touches the room at all. The curtain at the entrance has long since grown motionless. No sound comes from beyond it. No movement asks for notice. Everything that belongs to this hour has already found its place. Beneath you, the bed has taken the shape and warmth of your rest. The linen lies lightly over you now, no longer cool except at its outer edge, where the air keeps the smallest trace of night upon it. Breathing has grown easier. The body no longer holds itself against the room. It rests within it. What once felt like separate things, cloth, lamp glow, stone, air, even the faint silver high above, has softened into one sheltered calm. Beyond the chamber, the temple remains exactly as it was. The hidden rooms lie one behind another in their own hush. Further back, the pool has gone almost fully dark. The mats remain undisturbed. The bowls and jars stay where they were left. Painted walls, quiet corridors, folded cloths, and the basin room all remain in their careful order. None of it needs to be pictured clearly now. All of it has become part of the shelter surrounding the place where you lie. That is what remains strongest in the end. Not any single object, not any single room. Only the feeling of being held within something patient, prepared, and calm. The temple keeps the outer night at a gentle distance. The chamber keeps its warmth close. Rest deepens because nothing here asks otherwise. After a while, even the room begins to lose its edges. Warmth remains, softness remains, and stillness remains. What is left of wakefulness loosens little by little, with no effort needed to send it away. Sleep does not arrive from somewhere outside you. It rises quietly from within the calm that has been gathering all night, within lowered light, still air, hidden water, stone walls, and linen drawn lightly into place. There is nowhere further to go, nothing further to enter. Held in the temple's innermost quiet, you let the last of the waking world fade softly back and drift at last into sleep.